Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. People have been asking me a lot lately about the reasons behind my switch from Ableton to Bitwig, and I thought it's about time to make a video about that. This video is based purely on my opinion and my workflow. What works for me won't necessarily work for you, and also I might sound like I am dissing Ableton and embracing Bitwig, but that's not the case. I do think that Bitwig is superior, but I still use and enjoy using Ableton, just a little bit less than before. Now, before diving into this tutorial, if you'd like to support the channel, you can consider becoming one of my Patreon, buy my presets on Gumroad, or just leave a like, comment, subscribe. Things like that helps the channel a lot. Now, with that said, let's dive into this tutorial. So reason number one is stability. Bitwig is way more stable than Ableton, and no one can change my mind about that. Actually, I think I've crashed it maybe once, twice, compared to countless of times for Ableton. And one of the main reasons why Bitwig is that stable is thanks to Sandbox technology. What Sandbox does is basically separate the processing of Bitwig and the third-party plugins. Basically, this will eat up a little bit more CPU, but Bitwig will run separately from whatever third-party plugin you're using. And so if that third-party plugin crashes, Bitwig will continue on working. And you can actually set different levels to this Sandbox technology. Let me show you. So if I'll go to my settings here, you can see in the plugins section, there's the plugin hosting mode. And basically, you can set everything to work with in Bitwig. And in this case, just like in Ableton, if a plugin crashes, the whole Bitwig will crash, or you can set them apart so all of the third-party plugins will run separately and Bitwig separately, or you can set them by manufacturer or by plugin or individually, meaning that every plugin will run separately from the others. Eventually, this will eat up way too much CPU, so I just kept it together, and to be honest, I can't be more happy than that. And yeah, there is some plugins that I've set them to run apart. Reason number two, workflow. I was able to keep my workflow from Ableton and actually improve on it. Like when you come from Ableton and open up Bitwig for the first time, it kinda looks similar to the eye. Like you can easily navigate the interface and find your points of reference. Does that make sense, by the way? Point of reference. I've just translated from French. Yeah, please let me know in the comments. Also, Bitwig allows you to customize keyboard shortcuts, meaning I was easily able to migrate all of the shortcuts from Ableton to Bitwig. Now, I know some people call Bitwig a DAW without a personality because of that. I personally think that every DAW should implement that because this helped me get to know Bitwig way faster and actually got me to improve my workflow because I got all of the shortcuts that are basically muscle memory from Ableton and all the goodies from Bitwig. I think it's a win-win situation and does make a lot of sense for me. Reason number three is the bouncing systems. Bouncing in Bitwig is really simple. You have two bouncing options, bounce in place or bounce. Bounce in place will render out only the audio material without any of the effects. So if you have a synthesizer or a sampler, it'll just take the output of the sampler or the synthesizer and render it out. And if you're working with a sample, it'll just render that sample. Let's say you've made some pitch modulations on it, it'll render it out with the pitch modulation on it. If you've made these pitches in the audio clip, not outside of the audio clip. And the second option is bouncing. Basically, it'll create a new audio track and it'll bounce the whole signal with the effects on it to the new channel. And this system saves way too much time because first off, you only render out the clips you need to work on, unlike freezing in Ableton where you render out the whole track. And also it keeps the original chain, which means you can come back to it, make some modifications and re-render out. Like for example, I have this instance of Serum in here, sounds like this. I can, for example, only bounce this section of it while keeping the MIDI. And this will take us to the next reason, which is reason number four, hybrid tracks. Hybrid tracks can handle MIDI and audio at the same time. Now, I'm someone who likes working with audio a lot, but sometimes when I'm brainstorming new ideas for a track, I'm not sure about the audio that I am using, and I would like to keep the original MIDI and synthesizer. So in Ableton, I had to keep two tracks, but here in Bitwig, I can keep everything on the same track and get back to the MIDI whenever I want and then continue working, maybe render it out, continue working with audio, etc., etc. For me, this is revolutionary. I'm not sure, but I think Reason has the same option, but I mean, I don't know why DAWs like Ableton didn't implement it. It just makes life easier, at least for me. Reason number 5, it's built to make everything faster. Now, I've already made the example with the bouncing system, with the hybrid tracks, but also even the way it loads plugins just makes things faster. So all we have to do is click on the plus sign in here, load the plugins that you need, and continue working. It might not sound like this amazing feature, but basically you're working here with your plugins and you don't even need to look somewhere else. You can just load your plugins directly from there. I mean, it's these kind of small details that makes this DAW better, way better for me, at least. Reason number 6 is its flexibility. Bitwig is way too flexible. It has basically 0 restrictions. Like, for example, I can take Serum in here and I can put it behind the Node Create device. It doesn't make any sense, but you can do it. Also, most of us know the Access virus synthesizer, and I think most of us know that Access has stopped developing the virus VST, meaning that some DAWs like Bitwig have problems with it. So for example, if I'll add an instrument track in here, I'll look for the virus and I won't see its editor. Well, this is the editor from Mystery Island, but I can't see the official editor because Bitwig thinks it's an audio effect. And I don't know why exactly, but I can actually load an audio track in here. I can load the virus VST and I can copy, paste it to a MIDI instrument and voila, problem solved. And this is just an example of the flexibility of this DAW. Also, everything can be a modulation destination. Almost anything can be a modulation destination. So here, if I click on this little arrow in here, we'll get access to the modulators section. We can add, I think, unlimited amount of modulators. I'm not sure, but I've never had any limitation anyways when I was working with it. So let's say I can add a classic LFO in here. I'll turn a knob, for example, the filter cutoff, and I can route it to the LFO, and voila, done. We have a modulation going on. Okay, hold on. Let's pause the video for a second. Here am I during editing, and I've realized that I've said an incorrect information, and I'm re-recording this portion of the video to correct that. So I was talking about how everything can be a modulation destination in Bitwig, and the next point was how some of Bitwig's devices actually allows us to affect their feedback stage. So most of the devices that has a feedback stage in Bitwig allows us to add effects that will only affect that feedback stage. So for example, let's take the delay plus device in here. See, we have feedback effect in here. If we click on it and we click on this plus sign in here, I can add, okay, let's say bit 8, device that would only affect the feedback stage, leaving the dry signal, well, basically, unaffected. And we can blend between these two signals, creating some extra spicy delay effects or, whatever we want to create. Also, each device, whether it's a synthesizer or an effect, a third-party plugin or an internal Bitwig device, acts as a container for other VSTs and devices. Basically, if I'll take this Serum instance in here and I'll click on this little arrow and I'll click on this little plus sign, the blue one, I can add, I don't know, let's say again, bit 8 device and maybe a blur device. And now these devices are contained within this Serum instance. And basically, in this chain, they're affecting the sound in serial, like if they are not contained within the Serum device. But if I'll save the Serum preset within Bitwig, like right-clicking here, save preset to library, basically what it'll do, it'll save these devices within the Serum instance. So basically, every time I load this specific Serum preset within the Bitwig's library, it's going to load these two devices with it. And I think this is a huge time saver. Okay, now my intervention during editing is done. Let's go back to the original video. Now, this will lead us to reason number 7, which is an extension for reason number 6, which is the fact that you can load several projects at the same time. So if I'll go to recent projects in here, I can choose whatever project, I can open it, and then I can actually move parts from these projects to the other one with ease. So for example, I can take this lead section in here, I can drag it, drop it in here, and voila. Now, with the kick and bass, we have the leads from the other track. Doesn't sound that awesome because they're not meant to be used in this track, but you got the point. I went to the other track. I didn't even copy paste. I've just dragged these elements from the other track and throw them here. And this is another example of the flexibility of Bitwig. Reason number 8 is the polygrid and the whole grid system. I mean, having a simple, user-friendly, yet extremely powerful modular system that doesn't require a lot of learning is one of the most powerful features, in my opinion, of Bitwig, and one of the most important selling points, well, at least for me, because with it, you can create a device that will serve your exact needs with ease. And you don't need to learn how to operate a nuclear reactor like in Max for Life. You know, I'm not saying that Max for Life is not good. Max for Life, I know it's way more powerful than the grid, but the grid is more intuitive, unlike Max, where you have to spend some time actually getting to know how everything is working and, you know, design your own GUIs, etc., etc. Yes, you can get more complex results, but here it's just straight to the point. Hope that makes sense. Now, reason number 9 is the ongoing support and updates. I bought Bitwig last summer, and since it got 3 major updates that added a lot of new features, new oscillators, new filters, new devices to Bitwig, while Ableton, I don't think it got any major updates. Reason number 10, and the last reason why I like Bitwig and why I chose it, is latency. The way it deals with latency is, it just works. It's PDC, or plugin delay compensation, just works. I don't know how, but I'm not geek enough to know, but it just works. Like, for example, if I'll go to the kick and bass in here, let's say, I've been shooting this whole video with an Acoustica plugin, which is adding 133.6 milliseconds of latency to the whole project, and it was just working without any problems. Like in Ableton, usually, if I'll look to the scope in here, you will see that the cake has been delayed. Even with MIDI in Ableton, the MIDI is drunk. In here, the MIDI is always in place. Again, I'm not dissing Ableton. I'm just saying that Bitwig does it better. And that's why I moved to Bitwig, because it does almost everything better. Doesn't mean that it has no flaws, but that's not the point of this tutorial. In this tutorial, I just want to talk about the reasons why I moved to Bitwig. Maybe, if you would like, I can make some comparison tutorials between Ableton and Bitwig, tell you what's better in Ableton, what's better in Bitwig, etc., etc. But for now, this is it for this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've learned something new, and yeah, see you next time.